The word EMF, or electromagnetic field, is a broad one, and contained in it are the things that evolve around electric appliances and power lines, extremely low frequency fields. And this EMF issue also encompasses radio frequency radiation and microwave radiation. And those are emissions that you get from cell phones, cell towers, Wi-Fi and WiMAX, wireless communications. There are 30 years worth of scientific studies documenting bioeffects and adverse health effects from these exposures, and yet we are still living with the same old standards we've had for years. They get tweaked every few years, but not in any substantial way, and not in a way that takes into account our growing knowledge about health risks. We had decided that we would write a state-of-the-art report on electromagnetic fields and health risks, and we would use this to alert people in the world whose mission it is to translate science into good public health policy. And so in a 9-month period, we have produced the only truly independent look at electromagnetic fields, radio frequency radiation, and health risks. Each of these participants on the Bioinitiative Working Group is in their own right a leading world expert. And I think in total we as a group probably looked at more than 2,000 studies. These are peer-reviewed, published science. They're not someone's, casual opinion of things. The response in Europe has been massive. We were overwhelmed with response, requests for interviews, media coverage, really excellent coverage in the news press. In the United States, we have seen absolutely no coverage. It's very disappointing to see that the silence in our media, our print and our broadcast media, is absolute. And we will be continuing to look for some change on this front, because these aren't just European health issues. These are issues in the United States, in the African countries, in the Asian countries, in Australia, and they're going to cost all of our societies very dearly if we don't pay attention. We are seeing brain tumor risk increase at 10 years and less of use. What you need to know with that is that almost everything else that can cause a brain tumor, mostly chemical exposures or ionizing radiation, take 20 years for these tumors to show up. Why is it we're seeing this increase start at 10 years with cell phones? Well, it means that cell phones are a very, very effective way of creating brain tumors, and it's happening in half the time. The general conclusions of the Bioinitiative report are these. The existing standards that we have worldwide for electromagnetic fields, including power lines, including cell phones, including cell towers, cordless phones, basically all of these things we've looked at. These standards that we have today are thousands of times too high. And the consequences of not doing something about this are going to be huge in terms of public health, in terms of sickness for people, in terms of lower quality of life because people don't feel well, they don't work well in these environments. And the cost to society over time, if we do nothing, are going to be enormous. We need new standards. It's fine to keep the old ones because the old standards protect us against being burned or being cooked or being electrocuted. What they don't do is protect us against cancer and diseases like Alzheimer's and Lou Gehrig's disease, miscarriage, and the other constellation of things that we strongly suspect are occurring. So we think we need an entirely new set of standards to address these new technologies, and they need to be biologically based. What that means is we ought to look at these 2,000 studies or more, and we ought to see what kind of biological effects are occurring, and we ought to design new standards that protect us and provide a safety factor below the levels where we're seeing risks start. So for childhood leukemia, which is a done deal, I mean there's really no more question. Power line exposures electromagnetic field exposures cause childhood leukemia, at least some part of it, and maybe a very big part of it. We're looking at levels of 1 milligauss, maybe 1 and a little milligauss. We're not looking at 100 or 1,000, and our current limit is 904. The effect of cell phones on young people in terms of brain tumors is the highest risk of any age category that we're seeing. Leonard Hardell reported that for the ages 20 to 29-year-old category, they had an 8-fold increase of brain tumor risk, or an 800% increased risk of brain tumor. So it was the young kids who had started as teenagers, within a few years, when they reach their mid-20s, showing a very significantly increased risk of brain tumors. The industry would like for you to think that we have to have conclusive scientific evidence, which is just a ridiculously high level of proof before we do anything at all. And this just is not the case. In smart public health policy, you react when you begin to see the evidence mounting up and the trend is toward showing an effect. You don't wait until the industry is finally willing to admit that it can't hide the fact anymore that they're selling a carcinogen. When children are mandated to go to school, and you can afford only a public school, you can't afford a private school, you are stuck as a family with whatever that district decides to install in terms of wireless. So this is an area where we really hope that parents and administrators will get together and err on the side of caution. These technologies, just because we can do them, doesn't mean we should do them. And no one is looking at the side effects, and we should be.